everybody, welcome to Spikey Saturday number 87 on the Mana Leek. I'm John as always, and it's time for, you betcha, the very first Eldritch Moon draft recap is here. We're going to take a look at my very first draft that I just finished up tonight on release night. You're going to get a behind the shoulder footage of every pick that I take. I'm going to talk about all my picks, tell you what deck I built and how my matches went. But we're going to jump into pack one, pick one right now. And here we are. We take a look. Our flip card is an Extricator of Sin. Our rare back there was a Stitcher's Graft. Pretty bad first pack for my very first draft. As a quick note, I am recording this, of course, after the fact. So if there's any awkwardness or pauses or anything like that, or filling up time like I'm doing right now, that would be why. But in this pack, we see the Extricator of Sin, and I kind of think about that, and I always thought about the potential of a white-black sacrifice deck being there. There's a Prey Upon, which seems like an okay first pick as well, and otherwise not much. Our uncommons were pretty boring, so I do just go with the Prey Upon. It's not an exciting first pick, and not even a brand new card. I've already played with Prey Upons, but it's good enough for me. So I do take it. Pack one, pick one. Up next, we see an Olivia's Dragoon, Desperate Sentry, Bloodbriar, Wolfkin Bond, nothing jumping out just yet. Well, there's a Foul Emissary there, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be okay with it or not. Back in my set review, and, you know, where else should I give it a try other than the very first draft? So I push it right to the front. I figure, hey, I took a Prey Upon, can stay green, potentially go into the Emerge deck. And there's really not much else in the pack, so I do just take that Foul Emissary. And at this point, I figure I'll keep an eye out for Emerge cards and maybe go into the blue-green Emerge deck and see if it's actually a thing or not. The next pack shows up and we see a Wretched Gryff. Well, there's Emerge. There's a Certain Death in there, a Thermo Alchemist, which I briefly hesitate on and then say, no, I didn't get one of the splashy rares. There's a Haunted Dead as well, which is pretty darn nice to see. And so I'm really kind of thinking about the Haunted Dead. There's a Tangleclaw Werewolf as well if I want to stay green. I flip it to the back to remind myself that, yeah, it's Fibrous Entangler, which is decent. The Wretched Gryff is kind of the Emerge deck that I want to go in for. The Tangleclaw Werewolf is an uncommon, so is the Haunted Dead, but I don't know if I want to be green-black or not. I'm really thinking about green-blue, and really I should be pushing that Wretched Gryff to the front, but I am keeping the Tangleclaw Werewolf there. I remember seeing Fibrous Entangler do a lot of good work in the pre-release and in the pre-pre-release. Tangleclaw Werewolf, the front side, not quite as good, I don't think. I think the correct pick here is 100% Haunted Dead, and you can see me just super hesitate here. But I go for the Tangleclaw Werewolf, and in retrospect, I don't think that was correct. But it's the pick that I took. Up next, we've got a Vildan Pack Outcast, a Lunar Force. Well, that's pretty terrible. Strange Augmentation, also terrible. There's a Grapple with the Past, which is okay, and I put that to the front. There's an Alchemist Greeting, which isn't really that good at all. There's a Lashweed Lurker. Well, that's kind of into the Emerge, and potentially even better than Gryff. I don't think it is better than Gryff on a sort of real-world level. I think on a power level it is better. And I do decide to take it, and I say, you know what, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do blue-green Emerge. Next pack, we've got ourselves a Dawn Gryff, another Certain Death. I push that to the front just in case. A Drownyard Behemoth, well, that continues the plan. Stromkirk Occultist, I remind myself, is that something I'm super excited about? Not really. I want to give it a shot at some point, but I'm not going to jump into red right now just for that. I do just take the Drownyard Behemoth, keep on the Emerge plan. Up next, we've got ourselves a Backwoods Survivalist, Guardian Pilgrims, Fortune's Favor, Weaver of Lightning, Take Inventory. Man, not much here really for me. I mean, the Weaver of Lightning is probably one of the best picks. I do push it to the front, but the blue-red spells deck is rapidly falling out of my fingers. I don't really think I can take the Weaver of Lightning, so I think the Backwoods Survivalist kind of wins out just a little bit. Very boring pick, but it's what I took. Next pack, we've got ourselves a Cultist. Well, that's really good into the Emerge plan. There's a Galvanic Bombardment back there as well, suggesting that red's maybe a little bit open. And I probably should have considered a little bit more, but I did take that Cultist because that goes right into the dream curve into basically all of the uncommon Emerge creatures. So I do snap pick it. Up next, we've got Contingency Plan, Rise from the Grave, Boon of Emrakul. That's pretty good and kind of late, really, for that Boon of Emrakul to be there. I pushed the Rise from the Graves ahead first, but Boon from Emrakul just shouldn't be that late. It should be more like a 4th or 5th pick, I think. So I do take it and figure, well, maybe black might be open, even though I'm really pushing pretty hard into the Emerge colors. Up next, we get my pack back. Let's see what wheeled. Well, of course, Stitcher's Graft yield. It's terrible. And really, there's not much in this pack other than Olivia's Dragoon, which maybe suggests that black might be open if nobody took a black card, a 2/2 bear. Like, totally fine. So I do take it, and it's my second black card in a row, so it looks like maybe black is going to kind of be where I start pushing towards. Blue just is not appearing for me at all. Next pack, we get a Grizzled Angler and Convolute, and so there's some blue, actually. There's a Desperate Sentry, a Bloodbriar. I do think about the Bloodbriar. If I do end up in blue-green, maybe I get some clues and Bloodbriar might be okay. But if I do end up heavy in Emerge, then maybe the Grizzled Angler is okay. I take a look here and I count my colorless creatures. I see I have 2, and really Grizzled Angler kind of starts to win out here. I don't like it, and I don't think it's really actually going to end up being all that good in draft, to be honest, even if you are in the Dream blue-green deck. But I do take it, just in case I play it. Time for another pack. We get past a Campaign of Vengeance, a Thermo Alchemist, a Certain Death, and a Distemper of Blood. At this point, I'm still not wanting to go into black, and I really just flat out should be with that Certain Death there. It's not a good card, but it's a fine card. If you don't get a whole lot of removal, it's totally fine. But I do really sit here a lot and think about the Campaign of Vengeance, and I do ultimately take it. And very ashamedly, it's honestly kind of a hate draft, because I'm not going to play it, but I don't want to play against it. I'm going to lose to that card. I don't think it's great, but I did hate draft it there, and I don't feel good about it. I should have taken the Certain Death. Final 3 cards in this pack. We've got an Alchemist Greeting, which is clearly the best card. Nobody should be playing Lunar Force or Strange Augmentation at all. Last 2 picks, we get a Graph Rats, and I mean, if I'm going to end up pushing towards black, may as well take a Graph Rat, see if we can get a Midnight Scavengers. And I ship that other card, and then we get our last card, which is going to be coming to us very shortly. I'm not stopping this recording because it shouldn't be that much longer before we get the last card. And now I'm going to smash cut to us getting the last card. And now here's our last card, another Graph Rat. So we get 2 Graph Rats, so that's the right ratio. We just need a Midnight Scavengers now in pack number 2. Opening on up pack number 2, I announce my cards, and what do I get? I've got Distended Mindbender, pretty darn good. And my flip cards that I announced were a Cryptolith Fragments and a Hanweir Battlements. Hanweir Battlements, not the good one. Hanweir Garrison is the good one. Distended Mindbender, though, very solid. I think about Mindbender, am I really going to go black? It's starting to look like maybe I should, and I really probably should have seen those signals even clearer than I did as I was sitting there. But I do take the Mindbender, and I figure, well, if I'm getting so much black, I may as well take it. Next pack gets passed to me. There's a Cultist in there. There's a Hamlet Captain, which I push to the front because, hey, and then, yeah, Midnight Scavengers. We've got the Chittering Host at the perfect ratio of 1 Midnight Scavengers to 2 Graph Rats. So I snap pick it and pass the pack. Next pick gets passed to us, and we've got ourselves a Bedlam Reveler, Tangleclaw Werewolf, a Wretched Griff. Not much. I pulled the Wretched Griff out. I really did not want to give up on blue-green. I really should have, although there's not any amazing black cards in this pack, but I really did not want to give up on blue-green and give up on the Emerge plans, even though all the amazing black I was getting. So I do push the Wretched Griff to the front. I think about Tangleclaw Werewolf. I think about playing it maybe a little bit safe and giving up blue. But Wretched Griff is a Wretched Griff, and Wretched Griff is so good, especially if you do it off a Cultist or if you do it off a Foul Emissary. Tangleclaw is the safe pick. I look through to see if there's any black to encourage me. There's not, so I do take the Griff. Next pack gets passed to us, and there's an Emrakul's influence in there, and a Hamlet Captain. Hey, Elvenwald Captive seems very good. There's a Boon of Emrakul back there as well. But I'd really like some ramp. I'd really like some green creatures to help me get into whatever it is I end up being in, be it blue-green or be it black-green. So Elvenwald Captive gets pushed to the front. Boon of Emrakul maybe should have been considered a little bit more, but Rampers and Mana Dorks are just so solid, there's no way I'm passing one up. Next pack, we get a Succumb to Temptation, a Ruthless Disposal, which I passed to the front, plus a Prey Upon. Ruthless Disposal. I bashed it a fair bit in the set review. And I'm going to tell you, I probably was a little bit wrong on it, although I was in very, very, very favorable situations. Spoiler, I did play it tonight. I was in very favorable situations every time I had it. I'm going to have to get some more experience with it, but it's probably better than I thought it was. I don't know if it's amazing, though, just yet. But it is what I take, because I figure, well, I may as well test it out and find out. Next pack gets passed to us after some great consternation on the person who was passing to me. Exultant Cultist, there's a Haunted Dead. I passed one up in pack 1. No idea where it ended up. It didn't wheel, but I take it here because I am not missing out on yet another creature that makes a 1/1 flying token. Wolfkin Bond gets passed, plus a Succumb to Temptation. I don't think Wolfkin Bond is good. I just don't think it's good. I keep it at the front just in case, but I know Succumb to Temptation is very good. And at this point, I'm starting to decide, yeah, I get it. I'm gonna be black-green. So I do take the Succumb to Temptation, and I kind of give up a little bit on my blue-green plans. Next pack comes on over to us, and it's got an Alchemist Greeting, a Laboratory Brute, a Wolfkin Bond, a Coax from the Blind Eternities is back there, yay. So I figure in this pack, really the only thing for me is the Wolfkin Bond. I don't want to play it, but I take it just in case I find a spot and give it a try, to find out if my distaste for it is well-founded or not. Next pack comes on over to us, and it's got a Bold Impaler, Distemper of the Blood, Weirded Vampire, Noose Constrictor. That gets pushed right to the front. Really only competing with a Weirded Vampire, and it's so much better than Weirded Vampire, so I do just grab that Noose Constrictor. Next pack comes on over. We've got ourselves Borrowed Hostility, Thirsting Axe, Gyre Reach Sanitarium, Lunarch, Mantle, and a Prophetic Ravings. All horrible, so I take the card that it's currently going for $2, because why not? Gyre Reach Sanitarium in the pile, certainly not in the deck. Next pack comes up, we've got a Cemetery Recruitment. That is the only card for me in any way, shape, or form, so I take it, and I pass the rest. Time for the third last pick. What kind of dregs are going to be sitting in this pack? Well, a Providence, because that's where it belongs. An Emrakul's Influence as well, and a Stentia Innkeeper. Emrakul's Influence is arguably the correct pick here, because I could play it, but it's terrible. Providence is probably worth 50 cents, so I take the rare rather than the uncommon. Last two picks, Succumb to Temptation, second last pick, don't mind if I do, and then a Cemetery Recruitment, why not? To wrap up the Eldritch Moons packs, feeling fairly okay, feeling fairly decisive that I am going to be black-green now. The blue plan has sailed off into the distance, but let's move on to the Shadows packs, or pack, I suppose. Alright, time for some packs that we know through and through. We've got a Confirmed Suspicions at the back and a Town Gossip Monger. Rabid Bite gets smashed right to the front of the pack. Fantastic card, very first pickable, definitely in my colors. And there is just nothing else in this pack in any way, shape, or form. There's nothing I would even slightly consider in my situation right now. And even if this was a Triple Shadows and this was pack 1, pick one, I think Rabid Bite still would have been the first pick. And it was my first pick here. Up next, we've got ourselves Vessel, Nimbless of the whatever it was, Quilled Wolf, Obsessive Skinner. That gets pushed to the front. Graphmole gets pushed to the front before I forget, or before I remember that Clues probably isn't a really good thing. And then I see a green-blue land, and maybe I can keep the blue dream alive. But Obsessive Skinner is just the much better choice. It's the much safer choice. Let's not get kind of crazy here. And hey, maybe that green-blue land does come back. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Next pack, we get a Stitch Mangler. Boy, that'd be nice if I was still in blue. Kessig Dire Swine, I guess that's fine. Choked Estuary. Choked Estuary, that's blue-black. That can help me splash. That can help keep the blue plan alive. I could maybe go 3 colors. I don't know if it's a good idea, but I could. At this point, I pick that pile up, and I really think about it. How much blue do I have? How much black do I have? How much green do I have? What's going on here? Can I do it? Can I justify what I hate doing? Can I justify 3 colors? I also counted the number of wolves that I had for the Howlpack Resurgence. I had 2. It wasn't a good choice. So I do take the blue-black land, and I start to think maybe blue-green-black is an option. So at this point, I'm thinking I can go blue-green-black if I get something amazing that pushes me blue. Press for Answers isn't that thing. There's an Aim High, that's fine. There's a Reckless Scholar. Hey, a Slayer's Plate sitting here in the back. That's totally fine and definitely goes into a good green-black deck. Getting an Ulvenwald Captive out and getting that played and equipped a turn early would be amazing. So I snap pick Slayer's Plate. Not an incredible card. You know, it's probably not a snap first pick, but it is just a really, really, really solid piece of equipment. So I do grab it and put it in the pile. Next pack comes on over. We've got a Silberland Snapper, Stallion of Ashmouth, Clip Wings, Compelling Deterrence, and I'm just sad at this pack. Look at the back, I don't know why. Trying to figure out if maybe there's another card. Stallion of the Ashmouth, I guess, gets pushed to the front. I could take the sideboard Clip Wings. Compelling Deterrence is not the blue card that's going to make me totally jump into blue. Stallion of Ashmouth really kind of just seems like the best card in the pack. It doesn't feel good taking it, but I do. Next pack gets passed over. There's another Press for Answers. Adjust the Wind. Well, that's okay, but it's still not amazing. There's a Briarbridge Patrol, though, and I know I'm green. I know I'm green, and I know I'm black. But an amazing blue card would push me over into blue because I do have the fixing, but we are running out of packs, unfortunately. So I take that Briarbridge Patrol, and it's fine. It's fine. Next pack gets passed on over, and there's a Moonlight Hunt, which normally makes me go, whoa, Moonlight Hunt, but that's in pack 1, pick 1. Pack 3 is just a bad place, but I don't even know why I didn't see it at first, but there's an Ongoing Investigation sitting in there. I look at that Fork in the Road, and I think, maybe I take the Fork in the Road just to help the emerge creatures instead of Ongoing Investigations. But that's a dumb idea. Ongoing Investigations is so good. And that is absolutely the card that is going to make me splash, and heavily splash at that, blue into this deck. So at this point, I'm really hoping that Woodland Stream comes back around after getting the Choked Estuary. Next pack shows up, and what do we have? We have a Deadweight. That's totally fine. And nothing else was in that pack. You guys saw it. Nothing was there. We snap picked that Deadweight. Totally fine addition to our pile. Next pack comes on by, and Incorrigible Youths is still in there. What on earth? I guess Madness Vampires deck has just dropped so far. I take it just in case. The Drownyard Explorers in there could have been okay, but just wasn't quite what I wanted if I was going to be very lightly blue. And hey, look at that. Woodland Stream came back. Awesome. We've got the splashes. I'm feeling confident that we can pull off green, black with a sizable-ish splash of blue. Probably 3 or 4 or even 5 cards. Not too many picks of note left. Probably not going to get anything good. There's a Moorland Drifter, which feels really late, so I snap that off because none of the other cards should even be played by anybody. 3 picks left. We've got ourselves a Press for Answers, a Reckless Scholar. Well, that I maybe will play, so I do grab that. Press for Answers would have been okay as well. Silverland Snapper, nobody should play that. Somebody might play Tormenting Voice, so let's take that. And our final card of our very first Eldritch Moon draft. Is it going to in any way impact our draft? I really kind of doubt it, but what is it going to be? It's going to be womp womp womp, a Press for Answers, which actually is fine. It's totally fine in the right deck, but not in our deck. So that's how the draft shaped up. Now let's take a look at the deck that I ended up building. So here's the deck as it ended up, and clearly here I am in blue, black, and green. Splashing blue for the Exalted Cultist, the Ongoing Investigations, of course, the Wretched Griff, and the Lashweed Lurker. 4 cards, a little bit of a big splash, bigger than I'm usually comfortable with, but they were strong enough cards that I was pretty okay with it. Taking a look at the 1-drop slot, we just have spells. We have a Deadweight and a Prey Upon, both very solid removal. I've got some big things. I can make them even bigger with Slayer's Plate, so Prey Upon seemed good, and Deadweight, of course, is just solid early removal. The 2-drop slot was nice and stuffed. There's a pair of Graph Rats to, of course, go with the Midnight Scavengers, an Ulvenwald Captive for some solid ramp, an Olivia's Dragoon for filler, I guess. An Obsessive Skinner to maybe go off if we get Delirium. We can. We have Deadweight. We have Sorceries. We have Instants. We could maybe end up there. Then, of course, we have Noose Constrictor. That can just win games. If you have a hand and you attack in with this and you can surprise, make it a 7/7, it can actually do some serious work. Down in the spell slot, we've got a Rabid Bite. Amazing. And the Ongoing Investigations. Arguably the final card that really solidly made me decide, yes, blue was going to happen in this black-green deck. The 3-drop slot is much less packed. We've got a Foul Emissary there to do some Emerge shenanigans with. We've got an Exalting Cultist to do some Emerge shenanigans with. A Succumb to Temptation down there in the bottom, a Boon of Emrakul, some more just decent removal, and a Slayer's Plate, the big beater equipment, one of the only good equipments we've had in many years. So yeah, decent 3-drop slot. I probably would have preferred maybe 1 or 2 more 3-drop creatures, but so be it. Over in the 4-drop slot, we've got a Haunted Dead, a Tangleclaw Werewolf, a Briarbridge Patrol, A Midnight Scavengers that apparently thinks it should be discounted because it's actually a 5-drop, and a Wretched Griff, which I do consider to generally be a 4-drop. If you're playing your curve properly, if you've built it properly, Wretched Griff should be kind of a 4-drop, not necessarily the 7-drop that it suggests. And down there in the spell slot is a Ruthless Disposal. Over in the 5-drop slot, where the Midnight Scavengers should be hanging out, we have a Distended Mindbender and a Lashweed Lurker. Both of those, of course, are 8-drops, but again, I generally consider these to be kind of like 5-drops if your curve is going appropriately. They're slightly more expensive in my curve out just because they are double color. Distended Mindbender is 2 black, Lashweed is green and a blue, so it can be a little bit trickier to make these 4-drops, but they can still be 4-drops. Finally, off in the lands, we have the cards that made this all work out, the Choked Estuary and the Woodland Stream, and you can see I played 7 swamps, 2 islands, and 6 forests. So we had 7 green sources, we had 8 black sources, and we had 4 blue sources, and it worked out pretty darn okay if I do say so myself. So back to the deck at large, just a few notes here before I get into my matches. Ruthless Disposal is pretty darn good, and I talked about this a little bit in the draft portion. This is nowhere near as bad as I expected, but I will say I never ended up in that situation where I top decked it and didn't have a card to discard. I never ended up in the situation where I didn't have a creature to sacrifice, and I never ended up in the situation where my opponent only had 1 creature to target, and I would have had to have wasted one of the -13/-13s. Other than that, everything's kind of where I expected it. I've already played with Chittering Hosts, and it was good as expected. I've already played with Lashweed Lurker and Wretched Griff, and they were good as expected as well. Ruthless Disposal was honestly the only surprise to me. Everything else kind of worked out. So, how did I do? So my first matchup was up against Laura, which was a pain because I probably lose to her as much as I win against her, especially if it's cube draft. Thankfully this was not cube draft. But Laura was playing black-green, kind of spiders. It was her plan. She first picked Ishkana, and then unfortunately only saw 1 other spider in all of the rest of the packs, so she didn't quite get to go black-green spiders, but she was black-green delirium, black-green kinda, good stuff. In game 1, both of us somehow drew 15 lands each. Both of us only had 2 lands left in our deck by the end of it, but I did manage to pull it out. She had a couple of flyers, but not flyers, she had reachers, which stopped my flyers, which was my plan for winning, but Ruthless Disposal really pulled it out. I was able to knock those spiders down and get through for the win. Match 2 was similarly just as grindy. She, I believe, got slightly mana screwed or slightly mana flooded. Something happened with the land issues, but she again got the spiders out, but I again was able to ruthlessly dispose of them and get through with all my creatures. So I 2-0'd match 1. Pretty good start to the night. Match 2, I was up against Marco. It was a half pair down, as he had drawn in his first round, so not quite a true pair down. He was on blue-white flyers, blue-white spirits. He had an Odric in his deck, so basically everything in his deck had flying once Odric hit the board. He had a Geist of the Archives, which just scried so much value. So much value. I will be snap picking Geist of the Archives most times that I see it. It is an amazing card. He also had Turnicide, which I don't necessarily agree with, but boy did it cause me some trouble. He managed to counter not Ruthless Disposal, he countered Rabid Bite with it, followed that up by returning it to his hand with a Vexling Scuttler to counter my Prey Upon, but finally my Ruthless Disposal was able to get through. I ended up winning game 1 of that match with a Slayer's Plate going through the air. Round 2 ended up a little bit less evenly matched, a little bit more lopsided in my favor. It still took some time, but Slayer's Plate managed to get there, and I managed to 2-0 round 2 as well. Going into round 3, I was feeling pretty good. I hadn't lost a game yet, and this deck was really firing on all cylinders. I was up against Ben in the final round, and he was on red-white aggro. He came swinging out of the gates with the Brazen Wolves, and boy, can I see Brazen Wolves running away with games in this format. I was barely able to hang on, dropping all the way down to 9 life, actually, according to my notes here, before I was able to manage to kill it. And then I was able to get some walls up. I was able to get my Tangled Werewolves up. I was able to hang out until I got my Wretched Griff up, and eventually was able to outlast him and get through for the win in game 1. Game 2 again was a back and forth match, and at this point I had seen a lot of his removal. He had 2 choking restraint, and they were sitting on my creatures. He had a Silver Strike that I knew he had in hand, and soul read him a good 3 or 4 turns before he finally cast it. I had a Lashweed Lurker with a Slayer's Plate, and I simply didn't swing in with it because I knew he had to have a Silver Strike. Eventually, he just had to use Silver Strike on something significantly smaller than the Lashweed Lurker. And once his removal was finally used up, all 5 pieces of it, I was able to come through and finish off Game 2 as well, giving me a perfect 3-0 all into night. I didn't drop a single game with this deck. Fantastic way to start out Eldritch Moon. I am excited about this draft format. I think it's going to be good. I think I might even like it more than Shadows over Innistrad. I'm obviously going to need a lot more experience with it, but it just feels good to me. It doesn't feel quite as synergy dependent as Innistrad, which I think was kind of hurting it a little bit, because if you didn't get that synergy deck, you just lost. You were just done. This feels ever so slightly closer to a core set, to a simpler set where you play 2 colors. And yes, there's synergy, and the people who are going to do the best are the people who can find that synergy, but it's not going to be so utterly dependent on it. So I am really, really excited to play more of this draft format, especially when I start out with a perfect 3-0 night. Anyways, let me know how your first drafts of Eldritch Moon went if you played some Friday night. Let me know down in the comments below. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at TheManaLeek. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. You can also find me at Facebook.com/TheManaLeek and Twitch.tv/TheManaLeek. You've already found me here on YouTube. You've got that comment section down below. Please make use of it. Click that thumbs up icon if you like the content, and click the subscribe one if you do want to see more. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, see y'all next time.